Anyway, so the first stage of our little series is going to be a quick walkthrough of just how to use Roll20 in a basic sense. I don't claim to be any fucking guru of Roll20, but I do know how to create games, I know how to join games, use the maps and stuff like that. So let's go through that first of all. First thing you need to do is make an account. I've already got one here, and as you can see, I'm fucking no life, which means I've got 3,592 hours played on Roll20. And that's on this account as well, because I have a second account, which there's a couple thousand hours on. So it's about 5,500 hours used on Roll20. I must be one of their top tier users in terms of time spent. Maybe not, I don't know. There are a lot of nerds like me out there. As you can see here, you got the ads on the Twitter feed and the right-hand page. You've got their marketplace down here. But most importantly, you've got your campaigns, the kind of middle of the screen. You've got your community tab and tools and marketplace. You've also got your games tab up here as well, and you've got just the home button as well. We're going to make a game, first of all. That's our first step. We're going to say that we're a guy who's looking to make a Roll20 game, step 1. So you can join a game. You don't want to do that. We want to create a game. Join a game, step 2. So create a game. Let's click on that, shall we? Let's do that. Everyone message Will in every single place. I've seen 10k hours before. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Alright, so we've clicked on start a new game. And now we have this page here. Maybe we should move this over a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. We don't need all this. We don't need all my tabs up there either. So let's just fucking do one of these. Right. So we've got to start a new game here. Maybe a little bit further as well. There we go. That'll do, donkey, that'll do. We've got to start a new game here on this tab. You've got names and tags, and you've got your character sheet here. You also have on the right optional modules that you can buy. And basically what that is you can even pre-order Tomb of Annihilation at the moment. You buy these and you can play through Storm King's Thunder, and what that does is get all the maps for you. We'll click on that real quick to kind of show you guys what that is. So you get Storm King's Thunder here. You can go and buy it. Oh no, I already have it. Okay. Oh god, how do I get rid of it? I don't want any of them. So that's why I already got Volo's and Storm King's Thunder. If you have Volo's Guide to Monsters, you can add it in as a module, which we'll do. Why not? Show how you do that. Yeah, I know, Stroder. So names and tags. This is our beginner game, or my first game. There we go. Got our tags. I've never really known the use for tags other than if we're listing our game, I suppose, which we'll talk about in a bit. But seeing as we're not, this is like, we'll say for home use. We're not going to bother tagging it much. Maybe we'll just put the tag D&D so we know that we're playing a Dungeons & Dragons game. So, first of all, the thing you don't want to do is click on I'm ready, create game. It's unhelpfully before this optional choose a character sheet, which I think almost every Roll20 game must use must use character sheets, because the majority of games are played as Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So, although I suppose you may not use Roll20's character sheets, fair enough. So this gives you an option to choose a character sheet that your players will be using. You've got a whole list of different games, so if you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you've got all of these. If you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, you can scroll down to find all of the D&D character sheets as well, all the way up to AD&D as well. You've even got Adventures in Middle-earth now, that's cool, did not see that. Must change my character sheets. Even Fallout and Fate. You can see there's hundreds of them there. We're going to click Dungeons & Dragons. We're actually going to scroll up, because my favourite character sheet to use is 5th edition OGL by Roll20. And I'll show you why in a few moments. It's really cleanly laid out and pretty easy to use, first of all. But it also has this drag and drop compatible with Roll20 Compendium, which instantly imports spells, items, and NPCs into your game, which is really, really useful, let me tell you. And I'll show you that in action here in a minute. So, we're going to click I'm ready, create a game. Now we've got our names and tags, and our character sheet if you want to use one, which I highly recommend that you do. And we click I'm ready, create game. Are we playing a game? When is buying a module worth it? When you don't have a lot of time, I'd say a module is worth it, and you want to play on Roll20 with maps, and you have money to spend on it. I do like the modules, mostly because it just saves me so much time. So I'm going to recapture this so we can see the whole screen that we're looking at this time. Left my tabs, there we go. We can see what we are playing with here. Let's do that. It's awkwardly sized, isn't it? We'll have to change that for the full series. So, you can see down the left-hand bottom of the page, that there is Encounter Roleplay and my little logo. That's my profile. You don't need to do anything with that in a moment. Also, because we're using Volo's Guide to Monsters, which I imported this thing shows, normally what you would see is this. Most likely if you've just joined in the Roll20 game and doing this alongside me. Why did that come through? Why did I hear that and not see it? That's odd. Let's end in that one. Thank you for the host download. So what you normally see is just this very blank, boring looking page, and it's gridded here, right? It's gridded, and you can see that that's for like models to go on. Miniatures, I suppose, if this were a battle map. It describes as your battle map, right? And let's go through what some of these things are and what some of these things mean as well. So, and I'm actually going to recapture something here to show you guys the tool set, which I'll be grabbing here. Don't worry, we'll edit this in post. On the far left-hand side of the page, something that you're not seeing on the screen right now, because my face is in the way, is this little handy toolbar here, and this is very important as well, which we'll just place here for now. So, as you can see, these are our different options and tabs. I'm actually going to open that up a little bit. We can see what they all say. There we go. So, so you can see we've got a battle map in the center. Immediately there on our top right, we've got the page toolbar. Again, all of this stuff is here for Volos. You will see nothing other than the untitled page which you start on. So that is your page toolbar. You have this, which is your chat. This is on the far right-hand side where you will see the player link for the campaign, where you can invite your players. What you do is you copy and paste this link, you send it to someone, and they can join in your Roll20 link there. This is your chat here, and as you can see, this is a kind of place where you can roll dice as well. So if you've been watching the streams, you'll see that we roll dice in Roll20, and they pop up there. It makes an annoying fucking noise, but there's a dice roll. You can put in your formula through there. You can even do a ton of different complicated formulas through there, but we won't touch on that today, seeing as this is just beginners. So this is our Roll20 chat. It gives us some options as well. You can type in messages and press enter. It tells you about some of the formulas. We'll go into it in a bit, and of course you can whisper people as well. Our second tab is our art library. Now you can have marketplace purchases. You can see I bought some Devin token packs before. These are premium assets here and some free assets as well, which you can download for free via the Roll20 Marketplace. Also, this is my library. In my library, I have all of the artwork which I have uploaded to Roll20 in the past. Everything I've used, you can see my Call of Cthulhu notes are here. You can see a picture of Lauren there, and the artwork for the characters on the show as well. So everything that I've ever used goes here, and it's all of the Faith stuff as well. And it goes on and on and on. So if you ever import anything into a different Roll20 game, you can find it in your library here. You can upload, you can add folders. Mine are pretty disorganized because that's the kind of person I am. In this place also you can search for tokens, maps, portraits, or everything. And what this does is it uses Roll20's kind of search engine. And if I were to search fighter in here, for instance, or generic terms, you know, like orc or something like that, then these assets from your library or just from the web that they find and search for you, turn up here, and what you can do is you kind of click and drag, and you can just import them into your game. So that's a pretty basic feature. Once again, we'll go more detailed into that on the best ways to do that, but that's basically what this thing does. This is what that function is used for, that search engine there. And as you can see, this model kind of snaps to the grid at the moment. Our next tab, and let me know if I'm going too fast for you guys. I am mostly paying attention to the Roll20 screen, so I'm sorry if I'm missing some stuff in chat. I'll try and look back every now and again. Yeah, you do need to... Yes, you can upload your assets. Thank you for answering some questions in chat whilst I'm going. So this here is our journal. Our third tab along is our journal tab. And what this is a place to add character sheets, most importantly, character handouts, and also folders in which to put those. So if I just click on add character, this is our basis for creating a character sheet. I've done previous Roll20 character sheet tutorials before, so I recommend checking those out. And there are some important edits and things that we do in there when we create the character sheet. As you can see, it just makes one Grunust, which I believe is just randomly generated letters by the sounds of things. And that is now in my journal as the GM. There's worth mentioning that it's not in my other players' journals. Every player that joins your Roll20 has their own journal, and you can choose to show or hide assets to them. For instance, if you don't want your other players to have access to other players' character sheets, then you can just give it to, for instance, let's say Tom in the player's journal. You can also change who edits and controls it as well. You can give it to all players, or when there are more players in here, there'll be more listed as well, so you can give it to people individually. You can also add in avatars and tokens here, and bios and GM notes. And that is, if you save it there. That's your bio info tab on your character sheet. This is your character sheet itself, which we'll go through in a bit. And then this is some more stuff which we'll talk about later. But that's the basic function of the journal tab. You can even add in handouts here. You can upload artwork and show people, images, texts. It's like passing, the scroll that you've made to the player across the table. And once again, you can choose who that goes to. You can change the name of it. So I can say this is Cthulhu Note 1, and I can show that to just one player if I want to be secretive, and they can see that. And that will then show up in their journal. Alright, next one, because we have chosen this little I tab here, because we have chosen OGL compatible D&D 5e character sheets when we went back to create our game, we now have this tab here. You may not have this if you didn't choose that character sheet, but you have your compendium up here. And here is listed all of the SRD content for D&D 5e, everything under the Open Gaming license, which is not everything, but it's all of the rules that you get if you use D&D Beyond for free, for instance. It's pretty much what all of the standard licenses for things that you're allowed to use without, paying D&D, basically. You've got all of the information and rules here. You can click on feats, you can find the SRD feat, which is Grappler. You can go back here and you can see, I wonder what magic items are in a game in the SRD. And they will load all of the items that are in the standard reference document here. And you can see that there are lots of them. If you click on one of them, it brings up this tab, and it shows you all the information about the chainmail of necrotic resistance, for instance. Pretty useful, if you ask me, one of the greatest features of Roll20 in this particular character sheet. Because not only can you just search for them by that, but I can also go to this thing here and search, for instance, chainmail. Or chain, maybe it's spelled, maybe there's a... chainmail. There's a space in between. Makes sense. And you can search it in there, and then you can add it and find it. So you can find pretty much anything that you want to in here. Really, really useful for DMs in particular. So, let's go to the compendium. Let's go to the Jukebox. Now, the Jukebox is pretty fun. That's a GM play background music that your players can hear. Right, so you click on the Add button up here, and say we want to add a track. It takes us to List tab, which gives us Tabletop Audio, fantastic tool that I use myself, Battle Bards, also fantastic, and part of the Battle Bards, fun enough, Incompetech, who I don't know too much about, but lots of Kevin MacLeod songs, so probably good, and Fan Burst. Okay, fantastic. So what you do is you can play and test these sounds, which if I pause my own background music, you may be able to hear that. It's kind of quiet. Solemn Vow. That comes through. There we go. And you can add that. So, I really like this song. I want to use it. Yeah, let's use this bit of background music. What I do is I click the Add button there. Instead of a couple of songs. And it adds it to the right-hand side underneath Jukebox there. Then, if we click off this, it should stop playing it. But then what we do is we have this button here. We can play it again. We can change the volume of it. This will make it louder for all of our players, or quieter for all of our players as well. We can also set it to repeat as well, so you don't have to constantly keep clicking on it to make it play again. You can make it loop. You can do this with all of the tracks. You can even set up playlists as well. And you call a new folder playlist 1, little thingy will jump up. And then you can drag songs into the playlist. And then it will play them for you in a list, as playlists are intended, like so. So pretty useful if you don't use the other tools and you want to use the Jukebox like that. So we'll leave that playing in the background, seeing as it's quite nice. You guys go. Yes, and there are sound effects as well for you to use. So if you're the kind of DM that likes to have a lot of sound effects going at the same time, then the Jukebox is really useful. Or you can just leave it on in the background and never worry about it again for just some general ambience. The next tab is the Macros tab. You're not going to need this too much, and particularly if you're a beginner, I'd say don't worry about this one too much. Even myself, and you can see that I've got about 5,000 hours into Roll20, I don't use macros a lot, Personally, I know some people really love to use macros, and in some games it's necessary. Some games, setting up macros, like in Apocalypse World, is something that we did, and that made it a lot easier. But this is not beginner stuff. This is also playing cards as well. If I show that there, that should show, yes, the playing cards down here. And you can add in your own decks as well. So you can make your own deck, like here. You can add in cards and card backs. It gets quite complex and takes a fair amount of time to do that, but if you want individual art on each of them, I suppose. But that's definitely something you can do. And it's a cool thing you can do with like Curse of Strahd with a tarot deck there, but you don't need to use it. It's by no means a necessary feature for being a DM on Roll20. I never really use it. That's good to know, Scary. If you can upload to Fanburst if you have your own songs or clips that you want players to hear. If it needs a registration on Fanburst first, but it's okay if you want to upload songs as me opera singing. Fantastic. I did not know that. That's really good. So a lot of versatility in the macros there. There's a lot of potential if you're into coding and you're a big nerd like me. But, I mean, I don't know coding. You're a big nerd. You're more of a nerd than me. You like maths. Then you can go to the collection there under the macros. Next one is really important. All settings, right? It's called My Settings, rather. At the top of the page, you have Exit Game. If you want to click that button for some reason, you can usually just tab out of it. But you want to stay on Roll20, I never use that. Rejoin as Player is a feature which, if you're a Dungeon Master, you join in and you can see what the players are seeing, which is occasionally useful when you're using things like dynamic lighting to check that things are working, and to just generally see what the players are seeing. Sometimes you need that perspective, because as we'll come to learn, GMs and players see different things. Display name in Counter Roleplay. This is your username, and it shows down the bottom left-hand corner, which you don't see very much, but you know, there's right there. You can change that to DM, for instance, or you can change that to your character name. Say I'm playing a character Warwick, like I play sometimes. Then you can save it there, and it changes down the bottom left. So for easy reference for your DM to look at and say, "Oh, you're that character," right? So that's nice and easy. So it says you're out of character name for this game, but I find it useful to change it to your character name whilst doing this. This is an important one as well. You hear the music is at full volume at the moment. If you turn it down to that, that's your master music volume level. You can turn down the jukebox to any level that you desire until it's back up to full. And this is really useful if you're a player. If your GM is blasting music at full intensity, then you can go here, back to the list tab, and kind of tone it down until it's at a good level for you, because not all speakers and headphones come through the same. Also, here's my pro tip for Roll20. The most annoying sound in the universe is this. Didn't make it. Maybe it's because someone else has to roll it. The most annoying sound in the universe is the fucking background chat bleep that goes on. It goes a bloop, bloop, bloop. Fucking awful. Turn it off. No one wants it. I guess it's vaguely useful to let someone know that they've rolled, but it's just annoying. Just fucking annoying. I turn it off that's one of the first things I do. I go straight to my settings, I turn off enable background chat bleep. I hate it. But it also maybe because I got PTSD because I played, D&D far too much, and I hear that sound and I associate it with my impending doom. Here's another important feature of Roll20. A lot of people will join in and they'll start talking, and you'll see their webcam join in. Video and voice is important. I want to broadcast to others video and voice. Now, if you're using Roll20 with people and you're using this as your place to speak with each other and see each other on webcam, then you want this set to video and voice. However, if you are only wanting video and maybe you're using Skype or Discord for voice, and you only want it on video only, because this is what other people in the Roll20 game will see, you're broadcasting it. If you only want to use voices, then you put on voice only and it will stop capturing your webcam. And if you want nothing at all, as I usually set my games to because I use external software like Zoom, then you want to broadcast nothing. Sometimes you can run into issues where where other software is capturing your webcam or microphone, and then Roll20 won't because it's captured in a different source. Usually clicking the nothing saves that one. I want to receive from others as well. If you don't want to see people, turn it to voice only. If you want to only see people and you're using Discord again for voice and you want it to video only. And of course, if you don't want anything at all, maybe using Skype for voice and video, which I imagine is pretty common, then set it to nothing. Also, if you feel like if you're disconnecting a lot, one way to fix and kind of refresh Roll20's feed is to click reconnect. Sometimes the servers get weird. I mean, I'm no scientist, but sometimes you just need to reconnect and it just works again. Sometimes it just stops working. If you feel like you get a lot of lag on Roll20 after a while of being in the game, then I suggest like refreshing your browser and reconnecting like that. The chat avatars are another thing for you to take a look at when you join in the game. Sometimes the big, if I move this there, you see how down the bottom left-hand side, that's quite like a big image. It takes up like, you know, maybe like a tenth of the screen down there. If you've got all of the players down there, imagine that down the bottom, you're kind of, the bottom sixth of the screen is filled up with other players. Then you can change your player video avatar size to small, which takes it even smaller and off the screen, or just to your names only, which shows just the bar of the name there. Or if you need it bigger for some reason, you want to see the character artwork, maybe you can set it to large. I usually tend setting it to straight to names only, because it kind of gets in my way when I'm trying to look at maps and stuff like that, but it's personal preference. You can also change where the avatar location is. You can send it to the top of the screen, which is actually just where my face is right now, essentially. I usually keep it down the bottom, though. Habit, I suppose. You can also reset the avatar location if for some reason you need to. I wouldn't worry too much about the token bar colors at this point. I just leave those as it is as soon as you're just joining in. And your video and chat options, I don't touch either. But if you have bandwidth issues, one thing that I would suggest doing, if you're using video on Roll20 and you find yourself lagging or breaking up, maybe your internet isn't so hot, then turn your bandwidth down to low or very low. Or if you want to be using clearer picture, then set it to, reset my Roll20 when you do that. So it reconnects you to do that. I was like, why did the music stop playing? And then it sets my my broadcasting video bandwidth to very low, which means that my quality goes down, but I'm using less internet, which is a good thing. You'll notice that the Roll20 Jukebox is still playing as I join in. It plays basically forever until you stop it. Alright, and experimental features, we don't need to touch that right now. So those are the main toolbars on the right-hand side of the screen. Yes, I do dislike that as well, Skygap, actually. The fact that you can accidentally scroll over the join Roll20 game and people can see your chat. But I mean, I've never known anyone to join in. You can just kick people as well, but it could be annoying. Alright, so that is the right-hand side of the screen. We will take a look at the page toolbar here as well in a second, but it does have some more advanced features that we'll get to. We're going to look onto our left-hand side of the screen. Now, for you guys, it's probably top left. For me, as I'm capturing this side slightly differently so you guys can see it, it's down the bottom left. So this here is our select move. Okay, this is what we can do to grab tokens. The same tool that you see everywhere in Microsoft Paint, in Photoshop, and pretty much every piece of software, and it can drag things. You can even, with this tool, enlarge them or reduce them to tininess, like so. This is your pan view. You won't be able to select tokens with this, but if you have a particularly large map and you don't want to accidentally drag any tokens away, then you could just pan with this, and it kind of drifts a little bit. I'd never use that, but I usually just scroll, because you can just scroll, or you can just click this and move it, you know, it's nice and easy. There's one down the bottom as well for you to use. Next one, which is very important, particularly if you're a Dungeon Master, is the map background, objects tokens, GM info overlay, and dynamic lighting. So this kind of square one here, this is where we introduce the idea of layers, much like Donkey and Shrek. So what we're going to do to kind of show you guys and detail this one, I suppose, is let's search back in our art library. We'll go to maps, tiles, and textures, and let's search for like just some grass. We just want like a grassy texture to bring in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to click and hold, drag it in. As you can see, it's there next to our little orc fella. We have it selected, so we're going to make it bigger, like so. Looks a little bit fuzzy. What you can do is you can just sort of bring it down to a reasonable size, and you can copy and paste as Control-C, Control-V, or you can right-click, copy-paste. So as you can see, when we bring the grass in here, the orc disappears. We can't see him. That's because the order in which we bring them in it brings it to the front. So it's like adding a new layer in like Photoshop or something, right? It brings in this to the top layer, and it brings it in front of whatever thing we brought in previously. The way to fix that, and the way that we get tokens showing, as you might have seen on some Roll20 games, is through these layers on the square tab. You can see this map and background layer is here, objects and tokens here, GM info overlay, and unless you're a plus or pro sub, you won't have dynamic lighting, so we won't worry about that today. Objects and tokens is the one that's currently highlighted in blue, which means we're on that one. The objects and tokens layer is intended for tokens and for our models to go, our miniatures, our characters to go on. The map and background is what the grass is for. Now, if we click on map and background, we see that these things go slightly opaque because we can't select them anymore. They're not on the right layer. We're on the map and background layer and we can't select them. However, if we bring in grass once more here, we see that they are, perfectly like seeable, I suppose. And you can drag things around, play with them in here, and we can make grass in the map and background layer. Okay, now if you want to be able to select your token again and to be able to see it, you go to objects and tokens. But we've got this grass in the way, so we're going to delete the old grass. We don't need you anymore, old grass. You just press delete to delete it, or you can go there and click delete as well. Now what we have is an inability to select the grass. We can't get the grass anymore, it's fucking gone. But we can select our little token. So the process of creating maps is pretty simple. For instance, if you just have drawn a map and you want to import it, then that's pretty simple. You can just upload them to your library by clicking this button here, which takes you to the file where you can upload it. It comes into your library, you drag and click it in here like that, and then you can enlarge it to whatever size you want. If you imagine that as a battle map, and then you put the tokens in the objects and layers. So always make sure that the map and background layer is in the right, well, the tokens that you're putting, the grass, the dirt, whatever it is that you want your tokens to be playing on, and you don't want to be able to accidentally move grass around, that they're in the map and background layer. This is something which I constantly forget. And make sure that the objects and the tokens are brought into the objects and tokens layer. Because sometimes it gets a little bit confusing when everything's on the same layer and you accidentally move everything around. It's not what you want. If you've made a mistake, let's go back to this. If you've made a mistake, and let's say we want the grass on the objects and token layer, what you do is right click, you go to layer, and you select which layer to put it on. So there's a way to correct your mistakes here. So we can put it on a token layer, it goes opaque. When we go into objects and tokens, we can select it. You will note, however, that the map here, the grass here, which is on the objects and tokens layer, doesn't show our grid. On the right-hand side, only the objects and tokens layer doesn't show the grid. Left-hand side, in maps and background, it does show the grid. So we don't want that. We want it in the map and token layer. But that's the way to do it. The third thing, which we'll talk about now, is the GM layer, which is for hidden, scary GM stuff. So let's go find in our Roll20 art library. We're going to search for tokens, and we're going to search for a rogue. Okay. So no keywords found in my library. There's some premium assets which we can go and buy, or we can just find one here from the web. I think that one looks pretty cool. I'm going to drag it in here. Now, this is in our objects and tokens layer at the moment, which means that we can select it, and also means that the players who join in can see this token. Now let's go to a scenario where this is a guy who's stealthed, he's hidden, and the orc, who's the player, the half-orc, can't see him. It could even be a trap as well. For instance, if we search for trap in our tokens, we'll probably find one pretty easily. We want let's see. Yeah, like a hidden trap door, right? We've got a trap door here. Haha, he's about to walk into it. What a fool. But he sees it. So that's a problem, because the player sees it and immediately can tell, wait a minute, there's a fucking trap there, an assassin about to murder me. What we do is we go in to the layer, right-click layer, GM layer. You can see it goes opaque and hidden. Same thing with this, right-click layer, GM layer. If we want to select them, we go to our GM info overlay, do this here. This means that when the player joins in, and he's just in objects and tokens, he cannot see anything which is in the GM info overlay. So what you could do is, you can go to your GM tab, and go down to our next tool, which we'll look at, which is our text. And we can write hidden secret trap, make sure he falls in and dies DC 12 dex, right, just to remind us. That's now in our GM inflow. We can put that there, and when we go to objects and tokens, they can't see it, but we go into our GM layer and we can remind ourselves, oh yeah, we got that hidden secret trap. We need to make sure that he dies. That's the save that we're looking for. Really nice and easy to leave some notes around that only you will see, and I'd encourage that when you need to remember a lot of things. You can write all over it and no one will ever see it except from you. A trap, I would never do that. I've never done a trap. Never done and single trap. Okay guys, I apologize for going a bit slow. I just want to make sure that people who are newer to this, and it's probably for some of you guys like, yeah, well, yeah, you can understand it. So that's our second one. That is probably one of the biggest features about using maps on Roll20 that you've just learned there. So congratulations, you're the best. Alright, next tab. It's our I tab. This is where we can draw shapes, draw freehand shapes, draw polygons and lines, draw text, or we can clear our drawings as well. So for instance, if we click on our draw shape, we can choose how large our shape is, what color it is, what the border of it is, what the inside of it is, and look, we've drawn a rather horrific looking shape. This can be colored, I suppose. This can be useful when you want to just quickly show things, right? So I find it useful sometimes for like large scale battles. So what I might do is say, if we go down here on this clean bit of the artboard, like this is the army of orcs. This is a unit of goblins, and you guys are, we just draw a little shape. You guys are here, right? It's also useful for like big map stuff occasionally, but yeah, the shapes are there for functionality. They're not like a necessity, I suppose. That's your draw shape. You got freehand as well. You can just squiggle all around. This is fun for your players to draw dicks on the Roll20 and stuff like that. However, if they've drawn too many dicks, you can click clear drawings. It will delete all the drawings from that artboard, and now you're clean of dicks. So congratulations, you have purged your Roll20 of all of the dicks. Polygon tool is like forming lines, right? So you click, 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 and form more like reasoned lines, and you might be able to do just freehand. Again, I don't use that a lot, so we'll just clear that drawing. And last but not least is the one I showed before, is just the text. You can choose what font it is from a limited range and how big it is. Test, for instance, there, how imaginative. You can move it around, as with all of the things in Roll20. You can change which layer it's on so only you can see it, and you can, of course, just delete it to get rid of it. This is your zoom. You can decide how zoomed in Roll20 is. If you so desire to zoom in on something, you can do. I usually just set it to 100%, but sometimes it's useful, right? Sometimes it's useful. Down here is our ruler. This is useful for measuring distances. So we say, is that spell, am I within range of the enemy? You can see from this tool here. You can just drag it from his face, and have a ruler of where things are. It can be useful. We'll go into the I tab about revealing areas in a moment. This one here is the turn order tab, as it actually describes to us how to do it. So many dicks. Oh, good lord. This is a turn order. If you click that one just there with looking at a clock, there aren't any tokens on this page that take a turn. Right click a token and choose add turn. Alright, so we're going to go back to our select move tool. We're going to click on our orc, we're going to right click, and we're going to add turn at the very top there. Add turn. Easy. We now have our orc who is going on a 0. If you're using your character sheet and you select your token, saying that this was the orc's character sheet, you can just click the initiative button here. It will roll it and immediately add it in. However, you can just do it more simply by adding in it manually, just typing it in there. If there were another token, let's find another orc. His orc friend. Party of all orcs. The orc bowman, perhaps, will come in here. There we go. We'll add his turn in as well. Let's say he rolled a 10. And you can, turn. You can change whose turn it is. So this one is just next person turn. You can imagine if there are 6 people, it's a good way of tracking. Okay, your turn, click. Okay, next person in the initiative, your turn, click. And there's, of course, more options there as well that you can add in, but I never bothered with any of that stuff. This one here, the last one other than your help and documents question mark, which we won't be bothering with, is our dice roller. If you don't want to use the formula, you can roll in here. So you can choose which dice you want to roll. D6 flat, just a flat D8, flat D10, and it rolls and it shows it down in our roll tab there, our chat tab. You can also do the formula without having to kind of type them in, and you can click roll like that. You can even add in whether or not rolls explode, which means that when they roll their max, that they roll again. For instance, I rolled the max on a 4 there, that dice exploded, and rolled it again and got another one. Won't need to worry about these if you're playing D&D. It also has your last 10 rolls that you can re-roll as well. For instance, I want to roll a D10 again, it's a 10. Fantastic. Your dice roller is pretty useful if you don't want to learn some of the formula, but they become pretty easy to do. Also, pro tip, handy tip, I suppose. If you've written in a formula before, then you can re-roll it very easily without having to go to this here and click find your last re-roll. You can just press the up button on your keyboard and it rolls the same roll that you did last time. You can do that as many times as well. So I can do once, gives me a D10, twice gives me the previous D10, 3 times gives me the exploding D4 plus 3. And you can do this as many rolls as you've ever done, all the way up until you find the one that you want, which is very useful. And a quicker way of doing it often than actually going through that process to get to it. So, alright, enjoy Strider. So, that is our left-hand side and our right-hand side. Our next thing to look at is the page toolbar. And this is most of the stuff that we actually need to do at this point. So, this is our page toolbar. We click on that. It shows us at the top all of our pages that we're on. It also, if we bring it back here, yeah, that's where it would be. This is probably what you're seeing if you are just starting in and you don't have the Volo's Guides stuff in here, which you don't need to worry about all these other ones. This is the Players tab. This decides what the players see on which page. For instance, I want to take my players back to the Orc Stronghold. Take my players there, and then they load in that page here. It's a great way of like hiding, I suppose, content which you don't want them to see by having them on different tabs. And so you go back home to the grassy field where you live, and then they're back on that tab. So that's how you control what they see. For instance, just you going here means that they're not with you. So you can play in different tabs and change different things that are going on in these different pages whilst they're not there. And when you're done and you're ready to bring them in, you just drag them over and boom, the players load in as well. Really useful tab for controlling what they see and what you see. Alright, so the next thing on the agenda is the page settings. Page settings. You can, of course, duplicate the page as well if you want 2 of these. Easy. Copy. So page settings is what I'm going to click on next. It's a pretty important one. So, we're actually going to go back to our page first of all before we click on it. So, page toolbar, page settings. We're back up here. We've got this new tab floating around. So, this determines our page size and our page height, which is in pixels, I suppose, is in squares or something like that, I don't know. But you can decide, I want this map needs to be longer, we change it to 30, we click save, and now there's extra map on the end. I'll show you how that works as well, as a kind of live demonstration. So let's change that to 50, our width, and you can see that whereas previously grey space, there is even more width for us to go to. And you can go, I don't know what the limit is on that, but I've never gotten to the limit. So there's a lot to play with there. Back to our page settings. You can also change the height here as well. If you want it to be bigger, you want it to be smaller. You can also scale each unit. For instance, if you want each unit, which is basically each square, to be 10 feet, then you can do. We click OK. Now, if we go to our ruler, back to our orc, each square is now 10 feet. Which means if you want to scale things, perhaps you've dragged in a map which is too big or too small, then you can scale things to your party. Now you can see where previously 60 feet was down here at 120 feet, now it's 60. D&D uses usually a 5 feet per square, but you can decide what that is as well. You can change your background color as well if you so desire. like so. I've never really used that, but I guess maybe you might if you're. It might be cool to do like a black. That could be kind of cool. Yeah, I could see that. Maybe I'll start doing that more. You can change your background color. So grid, you see the white lines that are currently intersecting across the page right now. The grid is currently enabled for each unit for each 5 feet at the moment, which is pretty much how you want it to start with. But you can disable the grid, which means that if we go back to our select move token and click on our thingies, they no longer snap to grid. Where previously they would snap into our grid in the different 5 feet squares, now they don't. We've turned off the grid. Which you might want to do if you want to position certain objects. Usually I leave the grid on. You can also change what kind of diagonals are on it and what type of square you're using. If you want to use a hex, for instance, so you can change all of the grids to hexes, like a beehive. Again, I don't really change this, but maybe if you're playing, Pathfinder 3.5 compatible, you want to change these up. One thing you can do is you can also change the grid color as well. So if you want a red grid, and you change it back to that, and you've got a neat red grid on. Or what you can do as well, if you think, this grid is showing a bit too much, it's like maybe a little bit immersion breaking that you can see so many of these grid lines on the page. What I quite like to do is just turn the opacity down a little bit. And then they fade away into the background a little bit more, like a little bit less obvious. You can, even if you wanted to, completely remove them, which means that the tokens still snap to grid, as you can see here. If you move up arrow keys, they just move them snaps. But you just don't see the grid. Perhaps if you're looking for maybe a more immersive feel, and you can do that. Or maybe if you're just looking on... Maybe if you're just looking at a like a front cover page, you don't want a grid on there because, it's just... for instance, on the welcome page of Volo's Guide to Monsters, we haven't got the grid on because that would look a bit weird. So we'll go back to this page here, back to our page toolbar, back to our page settings. We'll just reset them for now, turning back our opacity up. You can also change in the Fog of War. Again, dynamic lighting is a premium feature, so don't worry about that right now. But the Fog of War is enabled, and we'll talk about vision and that former tab that we haven't looked at yet on the left-hand side. Okay, and then we have GM opacity as well, which just changes the opacity of the grid for you. And the GM info overlay. Okay, also play on load is one thing. If you want a certain song to play when they load in, based on your jukebox, you can change that. So I want to say, when this one comes in, I want to play Desert Bazaar, because it's a desert scene. I mean, it's not, but then you can play that one, for instance, and then you can save that. And now you can see, because we turned on that Fog of War, that things have gone dark. Things have gone dark, right? Which means that they can't see anything. We need to go to our eye tab here, which is just between the ruler and the rounds, and we want to go on reveal areas. You can click and drag, and you can see that area reveals in a lighter color. It's full opacity. It's no longer dimmed or darkened, I suppose. You can reveal all of these areas that you want of your map to your players as they load in, and it's kind of budget dynamic lighting, and it's pretty quick and efficient as well. So it basically means that they'll see the black squares, and they won't see anything unless you reveal that area. Also, a way of seeing this is to rejoin in as player to see what your players can actually see. But you can also hide areas again. You realize that you reveal too much, you go back and you darken them in, and they can only see it up to this far. They only see this narrow corridor of vision before them. You can also reset the fog as well, just to set it back to full in case you've made loads of mistakes and you quickly want to redo that. So that's all of our tabs there, and that's our page toolbar settings, and that's our right-hand page settings as well. One other note to make is that in your roll bar down the bottom right-hand side, you can roll as Warwick, or you can roll as different characters as well. And it's particularly useful if you're a GM and you've added lots of characters in, you can roll as the Orc, for instance, if we've added in the Orc character sheet, which we'll go do now, right? So add in Orc character sheet, won't add any stats in now, but we'll show that you can roll as the Orc, and when you do, and we'll just do the up arrow key, follow formula, you can see the Orc rolls it rather than the GM, like Warwick, right? So that's sometimes useful. I don't usually bother with that. I usually just say the Orc rolls it, but if you want to, then you can. Or if you have multiple character sheets and you only want to use one of them because a former character has died or something like that, then that is how to use the that feature there. All right, let me go back into the chat. I know I've been talking for far too long. Letting you go and steal many hours of my life too. Sounds right. Never really used that, but next time I send someone to hell, it will be red. Yep. There we go. It's the darkest timeline. Yeah, so so that is the basics, I'd say, of that. And of course, if you want to make a new page, you go up and you click Create Page at the top tab, and you bring in another one, and it's clean and fresh. You can start working on that using your different layers here to create different maps for the players, and putting in as much or as little work as you want, either by buying maps that you can find, or just importing them, or drawing them personally, or in Photoshop and then importing them to Roll20, or just searching for them here. For instance, if I want to look for a temple, we can probably find something that's like a temple map, right? That's like free. Yeah, you can bring in all sorts of maps. You can load them in, you can decide if you like them. You think, yeah, this one looks pretty good, or actually, no, I don't like that one. I want to use this one, and it can save you a bunch of time. So, you know, there's shortcuts to do these things if you so desire, or you can do it the bit of the grind way. We go back to the token and just show you one other feature of the tokens. You see that there's this cog here. There's this little circly squiggle, I suppose, and there's this red, this blue, and this green. Red, green, and blue. I know what colors are. Hotbars. You can double click on it, or you can just type the cog to take you to edit token. You can choose which character this token represents, which means that the token, which the controlling players of that character can then control that token. For instance, we want the player to be playing who's controlling one Grunst to be able to use this token. Even show his nameplate as well if you want. That means that if we just given control of one Grunst to, now buyer and info, to, you know, player 2, for instance, then only, let's say Warwick, only Warwick can then control that character and move him around. Or if you want everyone to be able to use it, maybe it's a pet or something, you click all, and every player will be able to edit and move it around. The bars can be useful. You can set these to be certain things. Most useful is something like hit points, right? So you can change this to HP, and in our character sheet, if we have set our current hit points, let's say it's 12, so that, then we can set our HP. I will click on back on that, and we can set our bar like so, set our HP, and then boom, there's a green. Actually, let's go back to reveal the area, it's just a little bit lighter. There's a green bar over his head. You can even change the colors of the bars down the bottom right. This is token bar 1. If we want it to be yellow HP or red HP, bloody, then you can do that as well. So double click on that. Back up here, you can change the other bars. Maybe you want this to be your armor class, and you can set that in your character sheet, and it will just appear there. Maybe you want your bar 3 to be your fucking alignment. I don't know. You can choose anything. You can also tint the character's color. So if you want a slightly light green orc, then you can do. Can be useful as a GM to show that certain effects are upon players. The advanced tab. This won't be here, I believe, unless you've got dynamic lighting. There might be something else there. And then you can give permissions of who can see your bars, who can see your name. Now that we set all of the bars to available and see, then all of the players can see what his HP is on that. But if you don't want them to be able to edit these things, then you can turn that off so they can't change his HP when he's not looking, or his AC, or his name, for instance, when he's not looking. 462 alignment triggers. Sounds about right. Okay. Let me try that real quick. Fantastic stuff. So, double click back on that. Back to the basics. Back to school. You can also change in GM notes here, like this character has a curse, and only the GM will be able to see that. Just to remind you, I tend not to use that. You can also add in auras as well. So maybe they've got an aura of magic around them. You can change how long the aura is, what the color of the aura is, and then it will show like so, which is pretty lurid on that. Or you can change it to not being a square, and then it is circular like that. So pretty neat features. All of this adds up to be quite comprehensive, really, and do most of the things that you could probably want it to do. Yeah. Yeah, let's not go there, because I just win. So, back to our tokens. We've done most of that stuff now. Let's take that fucking awful aura off, which hurts my eyes a little bit. And that is our basics of what the tools do on Roll20. Of course, the bottom one is help and documents. If you want reference to shortcodes or you want to report a bug for some reason, then there you go. Next stage, let's go on to the second part of our show, shall we? And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try and answer, or chat can probably help answer as well. So let's go back out of our Roll20 page and just to our Roll20 home once again. Yes, the best feature of Roll20 is when you click a spot and hold it, a coloured circle ripples out. That's true, yes. Click and hold to ripple circles out. I'd go back in and show that, but pretty clear. Another feature, in fact I will go back in to show this one, because it's not something that necessarily everyone knows, and it's quite useful. Back on our select and move. Yeah, hold and click to ping, which kind of shows the area which you want to... Oh, this fucking jukebox. Which you want to play. Also, if you hold down shift and click, it drags everyone in the game to that spot. So if you're as a dungeon master, you're saying the bad guys are over here. Hold down shift, hold down click, pings and drags everyone to that in the center of their map and centers their map on it. Really, really useful feature. In case you don't want to ping, because sometimes if you're pinging off screen, I won't be able to see it. So I actually need to be dragged down there. So ping here doesn't drag that player over there, but ping here and click with a shift will do. Really useful. Really, really useful. Really like that. Alright, let's go back out. Back to our homepage. Back to our little homepage here. Back to the den of fun where all of the good things happen. Of course, up here as well is your like profile. You go to your account, my profile, your private message inbox. You can even sign out if you want. I constantly say signed in, so I can just join in and not have to log in every single time. This is your private message tab. If you click on that, you'll see all the messages. And if you have any like mail from people, then you can see it there. If people have posted in forums and replies to you or stuff like that, or reply to your game, then that's another thing that you can do as well. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is actually getting into a game. Enjoy, Ken. I'll see you in a little bit. One of my next things we're going to